Hello everybody, this is Craig from 9Volt Games, and you know what? March 22nd, I was going to do a video for Resident Evil. That's what you see over here. I was going to do a video for Resident Evil because March 22nd, 1996, Resident Evil 1 came out in America. And that shit was phenomenal. Resident Evil 1 was fantastic. I don't have the long box version to show you what the original one looked like. I only have the DualShock version. I had the original when it came out. Now, I was going to do a tribute video, and then I came to the sad realization while I was thinking about it on a car ride home, and I was like, you know what? I don't give a shit about Resident Evil anymore. Why am I going to do a tribute video to it? So this video is going to be how you can fix Resident Evil. But first, because Resident Evil was such an influential, series in my life, because, as far as games go, this was one of the first, non-RPG games to deliver me a story that I actually fully enjoyed, no matter how terrible the voice acting was. Guinness Book of World Records holding terrible. When Resident Evil 1 came out, this shit was fucking frightening. Like I said, all shitty voice acting aside, it sucked you in and it scared the shit out of you. And that's what Resident Evil has slowly lost. Oh, by the way, this is called Harpoon the Long Thaw. I know somebody's going to ask a question after. It is delicious. It's banging. Go get some before it's gone, because I think it's seasonal. Anyways, Resident Evil was petrifying. Resident Evil 2 was scary on a whole nother level. It was a whole city. And Resident Evil 3, which is the only one I don't have a solid copy of anymore. I had it when it came out, and then I just, when I started doing my collection thing, I never grabbed another copy of Nemesis because I wanted the GameCube version, which turned out to be really expensive. And, I can't do any more collecting for a while. That's on hold because of adultness. Resident Evil 3 was actually my favorite of all the Resident Evils. Story-wise, gameplay-wise, everything. I loved making your own ammo, all that shit. And then Nemesis was just awesome. And then we got the remake, which is phenomenal. The remake is still one of my favorite survival horror games of all time. I currently play it on PS4. And we got Resident Evil 0, and we got Resident Evil 4. And Resident Evil 4 was great, but it started to do this shift into an action game. It had QTE battles, and the over-the-shoulder camera was great, but then you see it in games like Gears of War. It's the same fucking camera. And then you're like, oh my god, this works more for an action game. And then Capcom started to prove that as they came out with 5. 5 was more of an action game. And then 6 was... I fucking hated 6. And 6 was not a bad game. 6 was not a terrible game. 6 was a bad Resident Evil game. I say the same thing with this one, Operation Raccoon City. I have this one here because I actually enjoyed Operation Raccoon City, but Operation Raccoon City was not a good Resident Evil game. Resident Evil 6 was not a good Resident Evil game. It's kind of like they're taking these action games and they're like, you know what? This shit might not sell. Let's slap Resident Evil's name on it. We got some new ideas. We want to try them out, and then maybe we can make something else. Resident Evil 6 I did not like, and I was a little pissed. I think this is what it was when it was the 20th anniversary of Resident Evil. I'm not saying give us something for free. I'm saying give us something that we want. Who asked for a remaster of Resident Evil 6? Nobody. Nobody asked for that shit. When Resident Evil 6 came out, the only reason I actually bought it was because the price went to $12 like that. It was atrocious for a Resident Evil game. That's what I was thinking about, as Terrence was actually saying, when I put up, I was like, hey, everybody ready to feel old? Resident Evil came out 20 years ago. And he was like, yeah, I just bought Resident Evil 6. And I was like, hey, you wasted $14. And then come to find out it's actually $20. Be like, god damn, you wasted $20 on that shit. And I was upset because I was like, this, whether we like it or not, this is the way that Resident Evil is going to go. And to further prove that point is that Capcom has no new ideas. Capcom wants to keep giving you the same game. That's why they re-released 1. They re-released 0. They're re-releasing 6. I heard that they're re-releasing 5 and 4 on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. You're taking all the old games and you're re-releasing them because you can't do anything new, because people didn't like 6. And, the remake of Resident Evil 2, I'm going to get the remake of Resident Evil 2, but I'm going to get it as more as a curiosity and the nostalgia for this game because it was so fucking fantastic when I was younger. And I would love to see this in new graphics, but I know they're going to change the gameplay. And I hope, as much as I liked Resident Evil 4, I hope they don't do it in the Resident Evil 4 style. I would prefer shitty tank controls over a Resident Evil 4 style in a Resident Evil game. And then I got to thinking, all week, and up till right now. And I was like, what's the best way that they could save Resident Evil? And I'm going to tell you what it is. Does anybody here know, by a show of hands that I can't see, how Resident Evil came to be? Resident Evil 1. Anybody? I'll tell you, because you can actually just Google it right now. Resident Evil 1 came to be because it was supposed to be a remake or reimagining of Sweet Home. Sweet Home was a game in 1989 that came out on Nintendo in Japan. We, obviously here, we didn't get to play it unless you could, one, speak Japanese and you had a Famicom. Or when the glorious days of emulation came out and then people translated it. And Sweet Home was a survival horror RPG. And you were given 5 characters and you had to survive in a mansion. You were trapped in by a ghost. The lady whose kid... well, maybe I shouldn't tell you. I don't give a shit. It's a game that everybody pretends to have played. And I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't played the whole thing. And I've only played a little bit of it. But I already know what the story is. The story is that this lady's kid died in the incinerator, and she used to kill a bunch of kids to make sure he had playmates, and then she ended up killing herself, or hanging herself, right? And then you end up fighting her as the final boss. Now, it was supposed to be documentary filmmakers going into the mansion. You got 5 of them. Once one dies, you cannot get them back, and depending on who you have when you get to the end is what your ending will be. So, and it has the famous opening door load screen. It didn't obviously load, but it had that screen. So all this stuff was taken and was put in Resident Evil. The mansion setting, the puzzles. Obviously, it's not an RPG, but it does have an inventory system, and it was obviously way more than being like, oh, it inspired Resident Evil. No, Resident Evil is supposed to be a Sweet Home game. So I thought about it. I was like, you want to get the horror back in Resident Evil. The best way to fix Resident Evil is to not fix Resident Evil. If you're so secure with 6 being the way it is that you re-release it on PlayStation 4, and if you got sales for it, good for you. I'm not buying it. I'm not wasting my money on it. I'll wait till it's a free PlayStation Plus game or a free Xbox Gold game. Just make Resident Evil the action game. Resident Evil is going to end up like Gears of War. Let it be that. If you want to bring back survival horror, remake Sweet Home. The best way to fix Resident Evil is to remake Sweet Home. Go back and do what you initially wanted to do. I don't care if it's an RPG or what. Now, I don't know how easy it's going to be able to be to make a Sweet Home game, considering Sweet Home is actually a movie. It's a Japanese horror movie. So I don't know about acquiring rights or blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, that's not something we have here in America. So, I mean, if you put the story of Sweet Home out in the wild, in an awesome game, I think, especially where we're at in gaming now with storytelling, I think that story, while extremely dark, if told properly and done the way that it initially was, instead of having like rugged police officers, a special force unit, people working with the government and all these badass people, if you have 5 people and then when you lose one, it gets permadeath, and that's a thing that actually people enjoy now because that makes it more difficult if you lose someone like your medic. You know what I mean? If you lose someone important like that and then you need to find another way around surviving, I think that is something that would totally be awesome. Because I think if you did that story, it reminds me of the zombie game. By the way, that game's free on PlayStation Plus. I actually had it when it was Zombie U, and I enjoyed it. I liked the fact that when you die, that's it. You can go back and get your shit, but your character's gone. I like that, and I think that doing that now with amazing fucking graphics, going into a mansion, having 5 people, making a mistake and being like, oh shit, that person's dead, it worked with Until Dawn. Oh shit, this person's gone from the fucking story completely. I can continue on or I can restart. But you want to continue on, because there's multiple endings. I think that's how you can fix Resident Evil. Just keep running into the fucking ground, because it's a cash cow for you. I mean, look at the movies. The first movie was okay, and then you just started to fucking fall down, and I don't even know where it's at anymore because I stopped going to see them, just like I'll stop buying Resident Evil. Unless you got tank controls and it's back in a mansion and you're doing all this crazy shit, I'm done with buying new Resident Evils. I'm not interested anymore. Like I said, I'll get 2, and that's it. But if you came and you were like, we're going to remake Sweet Home, I don't care if it's tank controls, I don't care if it's first person, I don't care if it's over the shoulder, I don't care if it's fucking turn-based 8-bit RPG. If you're going to remake Sweet Home, I'm down with it. So, Capcom, do whatever you want with Resident Evil, because you're going to do it anyways, because it's how you're going to make money. probably to help you build up Street Fighter to what it was supposed to be. Remake Sweet Home. That's all I want to see. Thank you guys for watching.